Funding for Minot Rebuilding Dreams Update is provided by the Margaret A. Cargill Foundation and by the members of Prairie Public.
This is Minot Rebuilding Dreams Update. I'm Dave Thompson. Thanks for joining us. Our guest tonight to talk about what has happened since the flood and how the city of Minot is recovering, we have the mayor of Minot, Kurt Zimbelman. Kurt, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
And also we have Lieutenant Colonel Kendall Borgman, who is with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Lieutenant Colonel, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
So let's just start out with a basic question. Where is Minot now?
Well, I would say, Dave, Minot is making some great improvements. From 2011, of course, in the valley there was only one way to go, and that was up. And people really dug in and have just done a tremendous job of rebuilding. We've got a long ways to go. We do have flood protection that we had previous to the flood, so you know, those dikes are in good shape. We're tested a little bit again this year, and I think the people are feeling better about where we're at where our community's at, and you can just kind of feel it in the air that we're starting to get ahead of this thing a little bit.
Lieutenant Colonel, from your perspective, do you see the same thing, that Minot is improving?
Oh yes, definitely. The city and the basin is recovering at a good pace. And we're working with the community and with the Canadians on flood protection and how we do our operation of the reservoirs and the flood risk management program.
We'll be getting into that subject in a bit, but we also, before this program aired, we asked for some viewer questions. We have a couple. I'd like to read this one. It's from Shirley Dykeshorn. She says, and it's a two-part question, how do you think the city has done in communicating with flood-affected residents about help available, the status of buyouts, and what the city is doing? And also, what are you doing to address affordable housing needs in the city? Let's take the first part. Mayor Zimbelman, how has the city done with communicating what the city is doing and the buyouts and how things are improving?
I think we've done a good job there. We have much of that information at all times on our website. People can go there, they can call City Hall anytime and get their answers to their questions. I think overall the city has kept folks informed about what's available out there.
How has the Corps and FEMA been doing in terms of its communications?
This year, as we did in 2011, when the spring melt and the potential for flooding, we communicated with the local communities, the National Weather Service, the USGS. Again, this year we took over the control of Lake Darling for the spring, and we still maintain it during these summer months. And so we've been on constant communications with the local communities, with the basin, and with our Canadian partners up north.
How is the housing situation? Is that starting to ease too?
You know, I think it's getting a little bit better, but that's going to take some time. We are seeing a lot of building going on. For the low to moderate income type folks, we've got several projects going on right now, and some of them have already been able to move back into these some of these structures. But we've got a ways to go there yet. It was pretty catastrophic, although when you look at the number of homes that were in the city, I think it was somewhere around 2,800 homes. I think about 1,800 of those have already been rebuilt. So a lot of people have been able to get back in already, and plus I think there's another 300 or so that are under construction, and then there are some of those homes that just haven't been touched since the flood, and this summer we'll have to do something with those homes.
To follow up, what are you going to be doing, or what do you think you're going to be doing at that point?
Well, there's a number of programs. Our faith-based folks have done a great job. Hope Village has been started right away after the flood. These folks and many of the faith-based operations have done great to try and help these folks along, but we'll be buying some of these homes now. The state legislature this round has generously given us about right around $60 million to do more engineering and also to make acquisitions so that we can acquire some of these homes that people knew they were either in the diversion or they were in an area that we're going to need for the flood control project.
Now, one of the things that seems to be helping out is that FEMA has allowed some of its mobile homes to stay in the Minot area, and that's something new for them because they've always considered those to be a real temporary situation. But because of the housing situation in Minot, they've kept those homes there. So where are you at with that in terms of the FEMA trailers?
We've just got an extension to September 30th, I believe it is, to keep those trailers. We started off, I think at the peak, we had about 2,100 FEMA trailers in Minot. And the last I heard, we were just right under 300 trailer homes still being used. So there's not a whole lot of them left. And the ones that are there, most of them are in the FEMA trailer park itself. Very few on private property anymore. So we've made some real moves there. And of course, those people, the legislature also has made it some funds available to those people that just can't see their way clear, but they're making it available, some money available so they can buy their trailer home and stay in the park that they're at.
So do you expect that some people will do that? They'll stay in a mobile home park that way?
My understanding is about 90 of those trailer homes have already been sold. So, and I know there's others that are still looking at that situation.
Now, we did talk about the buyouts in some respects and some of the housing situations, but it also, buyouts and how homes are repaired or not, has to do with, I suppose, the dike question and the whole flood control question. So, Lieutenant Colonel, from your perspective, where are we at with the flood control project for Minot?
Right now, we've in the initial stage for the feasibility study, but the city with their local engineering firm that they have hired, and they're working. That's kind of the stage that we're at. The Corps has not been asked or anything to work on the project yet or given that mission yet. It's still at the community and the basin level.
But I'm sure because it's not an easy thing necessarily to do, as most flood control projects, they're not easy.
Correct.
You will eventually get the question, can you help?
Yes, and we will be definitely willing and able to help at that point. And we'll look at, as the current project there is modified or expanded, that will come to the Corps of Engineers for us to review and look and ultimately approve. And then if we are asked to assist in constructing it, supervising that, or whatever portion that the community is asked, we'll definitely support that.
So, Mr. Mayor, in terms of the planning process, where is the city?
Well, shortly after the flood was over, by April of the next year, we had already had the engineers at work and had adopted, the city council adopted a flood plan, a footprint for where we thought we were going to go with this flood plan. And so we've had the engineers working on that. They've scaled it for us. We've asked them to look at covering the flood of 27,400 CFS, 20,000, 15, 10, to see if we could find some middle ground there that might work for all of us and be a little more reasonable. But what we found is there's very little savings by moving the size of the flood down, just because of all the pumps and all the things that you have to have that go along with the project. So we've looked at that and decided that, you know, the best thing for us to do is look at the 27,400 CFS, the record flood that we've had, and build something to that. We've also done phasing. The engineers have done phasing for us, so we've got a plan as to what we'll do first, what we'll do second, and what we'll do throughout the whole basin.
So the plan is pretty much almost ready to go then, or if it isn't ready to go?
Well, I think we're certainly far enough along to start on certain phases of the plan.
So the legislature did put some money toward the plan?
I believe it was $61 million that they put towards more engineering and also the availability to acquire some of those homes that are going to be in the diversion that we need to get, that we haven't been able to use federal dollars for. The federal dollars were very difficult for us to use in many cases because the floodplain was actually inside the river. And if you weren't in the floodplain, then you couldn't buy out those homes. So it made it very difficult for us to use the hazard mitigation funding, and a lot of that we haven't been able to use.
So that really is a difference between Minot situation and the Grand Forks situation from 1997, is where the floodplain is.
Right. Floodplain being within the riverbanks, and you can only try to use that funding to acquire homes that are in the floodplain. That pretty much put us out of that kind of federal funding.
So, Lieutenant Colonel, what do you think could be the core role in any kind of flood prevention mitigation type effort now?
Well, we would definitely be in the review process, working side by side with the local engineers, the firm that the city and the basin are using. We would use our hydrologists to confirm or deny what their engineers have come up with. If it does move into phase where it can get federal funding outside of what the state and the local already has, then we could go into the construction phase and doing that. We would also have to do some type of environmental impact statement to assess the impacts as we look to change the stream bed and the existing project, as the mayor has said.
Just thinking, listening to this, that there are some steps to go through yet. Are the people of Minot being patient with this whole situation, or do you sense some let's get going on the flood protection project?
Overall, I think the citizens of Minot have been very, very patient. Certainly there are times where you hear things other than patience, let's put it that way. But you have to understand it's been 2 years, and we need to get a lot done this summer. I think by the end of this summer we should have most of the valley cleaned. The ones that have left their homes and have not done anything with it, the city will be able to come in and knock those homes down and maybe build another home where that one was for a low to moderate income person. But I think you'll see real changes this summer. And then what we hear all the time from people that have responded to floods of this nature is Minot is way further ahead than what they've seen in other areas. So although it seems slow for us, I think in the real world we've probably done pretty well and are moving fairly well.
Yeah, going back to the comparison with Grand Forks, that took a good 10 years for everything to be in place. So from your perspective, Minot is a bit ahead of the game.
Well, I think by the time we get our long-range plan in place, it's going to be at least 10 years. But we'll phase it in and we'll get some things moving. And we plan on working the whole Souris Basin or Mouse River Basin and up and downstream. We're not going to just try and do this just for Minot and leave our neighbors out. So we've offered to help with those neighbors of ours as well.
Speaking of the entire Souris Basin, one of the, shall we say, questions that has been raised is some of the decisions made by the Canadians, who have a lot of management responsibilities with Rafferty and Alameda dams, and how they handle releases. And of course you had that huge rain event that happened and nobody could foresee that, but there has been word that at least the Canadians are looking at maybe changing some of the procedures. Lieutenant Colonel, what do you know about this, and what are the discussions going?
We did our initial assessment or after action review and looked at the International Souris River Board. The American side made recommendations to the Canadians, and they also looked internally what they could do as well. And they have looked at this year as an example. In 2013, they're still working within their existing management plan without going outside of what they're allowed to do, but when they make decisions and when we make decisions, we started a little bit early this year based on things to come, and we were able to still work within the existing operating manual or plans, but to push water through sooner in the event of this season's flood. So they are working, they are in constant communications with us and the U.S. communities, as they always have, as are we with the lower basin, where it goes back into Manitoba and Canada, we're also in contact with them.
Mr. Mayor, does this give you any sort of comfort that things might be different a little, taking away the part of the equation that was that huge rain event? Do you think that some changes are necessary, and are you confident it'll happen?
Well, I absolutely believe there's changes that can be made that'll make it better for everyone involved. And I am fairly confident that those changes will happen. I think this year was a very good chance for us to see if some changes may be made. My understanding is the Canadians have made some changes with that board up there that was handling those reservoirs in Canada. And it seems to me that they were listening very close this year. We got ahead of it a little bit. I was down to see the governor, and I said, I think we need you up here to, get things moving a little bit, and I think that helped. We had a conference call with folks in Canada, and I think that did get us all going a little bit earlier than we may have. But I think those are the kind of things that you learn. It's part of the process. But all of the reservoirs were brought down lower than what we would have seen any other time. So I think what we've seen from the Canadians as well as from Lake Darling is that they are willing to try to avoid any kind of thing like we had before. And I think this was a good example.
So you see better basin-wide management?
I really do, and I think once we get that in writing and can work with it, I just hope that there's enough flexibility in it so that when we see a very wet year and we know there's going to be a problem, we can get some of that water running through before the problem exists.
We have another viewer question. This is from a Minot State University student, Joshua DeGraff, who writes, very simply, what is the plan for the site of the old Eric Ramstad Middle School?
Well, that's a very good question. That's really in the hands of the Minot Public School District. That's their land. I've talked with Mr. Vollmer, Superintendent of Schools. They are really sitting on that land for a while to make sure that it's used in the very best way that it can. I know that Minot State University has talked to them about it for expansion, but I've heard many other things too as a recreational complex. I've heard possibly a housing area, and I've heard park area. Be a beautiful area for a park. So, I think the community will come together on that along with this school board and the public schools, and we'll come up with something, a real nice use for that land.
From both your perspectives, and you referenced it earlier, Mr. Mayor, about the faith-based organizations. This is from Greg Webster from Hillsborough. His question is simply, what impact did Hope Village have, and what impact is it having?
Well, it had a tremendous impact. I mean, the way that was set up, and the pastor over there, how he took hold of this project and really has stayed with it. They've helped so many people out. Again, they're helping people out this summer. They've got the village all ready to go again. I think it's going to really be something that people across the nation are going to be looking at for opportunities to help a city in distress, and how you can have a place to feed them, have a place to the volunteers to feed them, and have a place for them to stay, and then have a place for them to go work lined up so they're not wandering around.
For both of you, you saw the outpouring of volunteers, and what surprises a lot of us is that the volunteers are still there. They're coming back, they're helping out, they're doing rebuilding, they're helping the people who need it. Did that surprise you?
It didn't surprise me, honestly. Maybe the amount of people and the number of hours that they've put into it has, but I think the most people are good people, and they want to help if they can, and they found a real need in Minot, and I think when they came and saw the smiles on the faces of the people that they were helping out, I think a lot of them decided we'll come back here again when we have a chance.
Lieutenant Colonel, your Corps people worked with volunteers.
Yes, and I echo the words of the mayor. what we saw initially right after, during the recovery phase, all the faith-based and the other volunteers coming around from outside of the community, outside of the state, was amazing. I mean, it was just, I mean, they would do everything from cleanup to food, and to see people coming back says a lot about the community. It's a place where the volunteers want to come back to. They see a lot of potential there, and they want to get the community back on its feet and do everything they can to help.
How does the Corps help support the volunteer effort?
That's kind of outside of our lanes itself. I mean, when the recovery mission was over, we're kind of out of that with the federal mission, but it's a lot of it goes back to the local community and then the volunteers.
And the local, go ahead.
Yeah, we've been able to use some state dollars to help those programs, and I think it's just a great way of being able to use those dollars that have been made available to us. And Pastor Paul Kruger up there at Hope Village he's just a guy with a lot of he just got a lot of go get 'em, and it's just a wonderful thing that's happened. And I don't want to just talk about Hope Village. Many of the other churches in the city are doing other things. I know the church I go to, they're doing lawns, and they have their cedar and they have their cultivators, and that's what their program is. And they have people at the church that stay there. So and there's many of the different programs that are around the city.
So it shows the community can pull together really quickly and stay together and cooperate to get the job done.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave out Minot Air Force Base either. They've been, many of their people were devastated as well that lived in town, but they also have brought forth many volunteers and equipment and the kind of things that were needed to help us through this disaster.
One of the things that was brought up time and time again is before the flood hit, Minot had a housing shortage because you had the oil impact, and the whole Bakken, Three Forks had spilled into Minot, and a lot of housing was being built, and then the flood hit. It just exacerbated the situation. And the oil boom has not abated. So does that put extra pressure on the city of Minot and about housing?
Certainly it has. That's probably our number one problem is housing. Infrastructure is another thing, to get the sewer and water, and we're laying sewer and water and storm sewer and streets. We're doing it all the time. Our planning commission has just been, they've been going till midnight most of the time during their meetings because of so much platting and so much building going on. And so it's been a real challenge for us. And with the oil boom, I have to say, had we not had the oil boom, I think things would have been tougher for us. That at least kept the economy going during this time, but it has put a real strain, and I would say especially on those in the lower to moderate income areas where elderly, that type of people that got moved out of their house or got back in, and now they've got a mortgage and different things like that, and the cost of rent has skyrocketed, so people that got moved out of their homes, needed a place to rent, and very expensive. But I think as this summer goes on and as the building continues, I think we'll find that we're catching up a bit.
I really want to ask both of you this question. What lessons did you learn from the whole flooding experience and the recovery? And what can other cities, do you think, learn from Minot's experience?
Well, certainly anytime you have a disaster of this magnitude, there has to be lessons that were learned. I don't know if it would carry over to other cities, but certainly the lesson that I think we've learned is that you have to stay on top of this kind of thing. You need to get ahead of it. You need to get some of that water through as early as you can, get rid of the ice on the river as soon as you can so that you get the water so that it can flow. So I think we've learned that, and then we've learned that people just have an ability to come back and work and work beyond really what they can sometimes do. But I just have seen many people in Minot just bounce back and dig in and get things done.
Lieutenant Colonel, from your perspective, you've seen these kind of disasters. What lessons can be learned from Minot's experience?
For us, the biggest thing, like the mayor said, is early initial communication. When let everybody know what's going on early, even though we were doing it, but looking at ways to work within the bounds of means, like you said, to get the water through in different times of the year and still meet the requirements for later in the year, and communicate that better with the public, the communities, and also with our international partners, and vice versa, so that we know what's going on in the northern basin, up in the Canadian portion, as well as also down basin and in the other portions of that. It's just that constant communication. And then the other thing that we're wanting to do is with the international agreement is ensure that both sides, both the U.S. and the Canadian sides, interpret the operating manual and the rules and regulations the same. There were some different interpretations 2 years ago. We've worked through those over the last 2 years, and I think like the mayor said, we started this year was better than it had been in the past, and we will continue to make improvements on it down the road and potentially get those changed in writing.
And with that, I'd like to thank both of you for being here. Our guests for Minot Rebuilding Dreams Update, the Mayor of Minot, Kurt Zimbelman, and Lieutenant Colonel Kendall Bergman from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. For Prairie Public, I'm Dave Thompson.
Funding for Minot Rebuilding Dreams Update is provided by the Margaret A. Cargill Foundation and by the members of Prairie Public.